How's it going?
Very, very good. How are you doing, sir?
No, good, thanks. Yeah,
Did
that's
you
going
have
really well.
a good day at the, I guess, the office today?
Yeah, yeah, no, I actually had a day with my son. Um,
Amazing.
yeah, so there's quite a few water parks here in New Zealand, like local swimming pools and stuff, but it's quite pumped up, to be honest. Like there's super tubes and all kinds of stuff in there. So yeah, it was awesome, man. He had a great time. It's just cool watching him, leaning into everything. So no, it was great. Had an awesome day. How about you?
Fantastic. Fantastic stuff. Well, it's only just started here in London, and a little bit of a blue sky. We are, but it's a frosty sort of, not a frosty, but it's a chilly spring morning, should we say? It's probably, I mean, the wind that's blowing is really biting through your clothing, so it's not exactly what a South African would call a spring day. It's very cold. So yes, so it is just another day.
Yeah.
You know what? It's going to be a great day because it's
Yes.
always about how the mind works, isn't it? What you put out there is what you get.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
believe it's going to be positive, it's going to be positive.
Yeah. It's weird that you say that because I think that's come up for me in the last probably week. That's come up quite a bit. How you shape your own reality and based on what you. Yeah, I think that's also interesting because I've also been thinking it's similar to what we're trying to do with the growth lab stuff, right? It's like what you're doing is like who you become eventually.
But so let's start at the beginning. Tell us about the growth lab. What is the growth lab? How did they come about? And why is it your passion?
Yeah. So I think Growth Lab started with me and one of the co-founders a few years ago, and I think we've been entangled in the same idea around helping people and really, I guess, leaning into coaching quite a bit, like using that as a way to help people. So. But there's obviously lots of ways you can do that. It's just, I think it's finding out for yourself, like what that might look like and how you want to help people with something. So I think for us, it was really like my partner, he's an NLP coach and he went through his own transformation in a completely different way that I went through something. I mean, literally part of his, I guess, journey was, or the way he ended it, or the way that I saw that he ended it was like, striking through a plank with his hand because he had that belief, right? So he had his own journey, and like I was sitting in coaching sessions quite a bit, trying to practice, but then also kind of like reshaping my own mind when I wanted to become like a ICF coach a few years ago, and I think.
Right, so what is ICF? Sorry.
Yeah, it's an International Coaching Federation.
International Coaching Federation. Okay.
Yes, yeah. It was just I think it was something because I'm a professional, so working in corporate and all that kind of stuff. I thought it was something that was important that's going to give me more credibility as a coach. I eventually kind of let go of that idea of needing to have all the certifications and everything to feel confident enough to show up. But I think it did definitely raise the bar for me in my own coaching. So I'm really thankful for that journey that I went through with them. But like I said, so JJ and I kind of went through completely different journeys. And what happened was we started to meet up. And I think it was probably because we wanted to start our own business. I think that was where that kind of drive came from. But it was also around how do we do something more than just a day job, earning earning money, right? So, and there was I think we kind of started to speak a lot about the ideas, but we really aligned, I think, and that's why, we found that kind of congruence between us in shaping something up that could positively impact people. But I think the journey was kind of like, we spoke a lot about leadership in corporate companies and the impact that leaders have in with working with people, and so that's been part of my job in the corporate space. It's really trying to help leaders and coach them to be good people, and I think,
well, hopefully better leaders.
Yes, yeah, and I think that was something that I felt passionate about, but I was more that was more kind of my job kind of thing. I think beyond that, it was more about people, and I think somehow I realized through that journey with JJ, I think I realized that there's a lot more to this, and giving people control over these situations and how we can actually help with that. So, I mean, I've been in corporate and, a couple of companies in the last 20 years. And I mean, I've burned out many times. I've worked the late nights. I've done that. Right. So I think there's a deep personal journey and like understanding what people go through day to day. And, sometimes people aren't really in the best positions. And I think, for me, that was my personal journey, I think, for growth as well, because a lot of that was pretty painful, and sometimes also kind of thinking, what's wrong with me? Am I good enough? So it's kind of like things coming up on that journey. And then there was personal stuff as well that kind of came about. My mother passed away from cancer. My dad passed away from cancer. So a lot of personal stuff like that as well. That's just part of your life. And I think,
Did you find that aided to you wanting to move? I mean, not move, but aided to that being dedicated to work to actually burnt out because you were trying to avoid any emotions there, or?
Yeah, I was definitely avoiding. I was locking it away like completely. And I think for me, it was a way to deal with stuff based on what I had at that stage. It was the easiest way to deal with it. But I think, never, you need to get that kind of like healing, I guess, in those places in your life. And I mean, there's still some stuff, right? Like, I'm not saying I work through everything. I mean, there's still some stuff, but
we're human. Think we never do we? Come on, there's so much. This world is made up. We're never going to get it all done.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I think that was me. The thing is, I wanted to. I think what I realized with the business thing was like initially it was more about, how do you start a business? Where do you find clients? Like, and we started with this leadership thing because I think it was more about like, how do we find clients? And there was a reason for that, why we kind of started to go into that, I guess, into that part of our journey. And the main reason was I was laid off. The company that I worked at was busy restructuring. And so there was all this urgency and fear coming in. And I think that was really playing out in my day-to-day. And that's to your point in the beginning, right? I think, your beliefs and all this inner stuff starts to play out in your world. And for me, the way that kind of like manifested was I was trying to sell something to people, and it wasn't. It didn't land for people, and I kind of through this journey, I had some mentors as well along the way, and I reflected a lot on like, what is it? Because it never really felt like it's what I wanted to do. So I didn't really feel aligned. And I think for me was like this journey so far has been a lot about finding alignment within myself around, how I want to kind of help people, I guess, in a way that really resonates with me as well. And I think because of that, I had to look at myself, my own journey, because I feel like, some of the stuff that I said, I think for me was you go through these ups and downs in your job, and I realized, this is actually it, right? Like that's what I want to help people with, like something that I went through that I actually really understand, and that
Because
I have
there definitely is.
empathy.
Sorry to interrupt you there, but there definitely
Yeah,
is when you've lived something, when you've been through something, you don't just mentally know it. You sort of know it, understand it inside of you, and so you know, even if somebody else's journey might be similar or could be different, you know that process. You know what they will most likely go through, and I guess that's where you can really step in with that known expertise rather than that intellectual expertise, and really help people can grow.
yeah,
So we look at the Growth Club. Could you describe the Growth Club in one or two lines?
yeah. My elevator pitch, right? Like, what is it?
Yeah, give me an elevator pitch. Tell it to me.
Yeah, I think the way that we've kind of landed with this, right, is what we are trying to do at this stage is we're trying to help people kind of shape up their daily habits and create systems that align with the things that they really want to do in their life. So the system piece is like, and the one specifically calling that out is, I think something that we believe is you need to have systems in your life to be able to deal with all the chaos. So we want to help people with that, like bringing in those systems. But we also believe like the habits piece that you have is, the day-to-day actions that you're going to take is going to shape who you become in the future. So it's really about like identity. I think for us, it's like if you want to create an identity that's more aligned with yourself, you need to change what you do every day. And those two things are connected. So it's your present and your future kind of is directly connected. And that's kind of a link for us.
So you're taking small little systems that people can introduce into their days that are going to make them better people.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's better for them, right? Like what better means. It's not what we better means. It's what better means for them. I think that's really important kind of piece. It's
so better for me basically might be different than better for you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I think that's it. Like people, I think if people have some support along the way to deal with all of that, we're just easing the load for them. Like that's basically it. And they feel more supported on that journey, because I think a lot of people are going solo at it, and they might feel like it's a sign of weakness or something if they ask for help or anything like that. But I think
not at all, is it?
Yeah, if you look at the amount of people that's burned out, in day-to-day jobs and stuff, it's really a sign actually that people really need the support. But we don't want to be the support at the end when people have already fallen off the cliff. Like we want to be at the top to.
You want to stop them from walking off the cliff.
Yes, exactly. Yes, yeah. That's a way easier way to deal with it, because I think once you've fallen off, there's a big road to recovery, that you need to take.
And obviously you've been through your own personal sort of burnout journeys. Now that's very much, I think a lot of people associate burnout with really being human. Okay. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because you've been there, right?
Yeah.
Have I been to burnout point? Not necessarily in a work environment.
Yes.
In an extreme mountaineering environment, yes, but I think that's very different to a continual pressure in a job that's not even yours. That's sort of,
yeah,
you've been brought into do this job and you're burning yourself out for somebody else and maybe not even getting the due rewards for that.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting thing, right? Like, so my father-in-law, he taught me this, and that's kind of stuck with me because it's such an interesting realization that, and you can, it's just a way to look at burnout, maybe like a different lens. But he said, so it was a bit in a different, he framed it a bit differently, but he said like your success will be determined by three things in your life. So the one is the skills you have, the energy you have, level of ambition you have. So, and if those three things are not in sync, there's going to be a problem. So, for me, it's almost the same thing. You can look at that in the same way, like for burnout, for example. If you don't have enough skills, you're going to be stressed out. If you don't have the support from your manager or like whoever in your life, depending on what you're doing, you don't have the skills to deal with those things. It's going to become stressful. I think if you have too much ambition, but you don't have enough energy, you're going to burn out, right? So it's really trying to match those three with what you're doing and then realizing, having that self-awareness when one of those three things are kind of out of play. And I think that could be impacted by, expectation from yourself, your manager or other people.
So if we've got those three, which one do you find that people most lack? Or is it different per person? I mean, you've got ambition, you've got the skills, you've got motivation, you've got the energy. Right. Now, if we're looking at someone who's sort of traditionally got burnout, would it be a combination of all three of those? Would it be mostly maybe ambition and without enough skills? Would it be no support? That support's very important.
Yeah.
That support that you get from people. Because
we
never do anything alone.
Yeah.
Even though we say we did something alone, we never did it alone. We've had the previous training, the support, the advice, the phone calls, the motivation, the partner that supported maybe in times of stress. So which one would you say is the key one for burnout?
Well, I think the interesting thing is, like, once you enter an environment, right, there's probably a fourth one that would kick in, and that's the expectation from somebody else, that environment, the expectation from the environment. So I feel typically in companies, I feel like, they might say it's the culture or, but I feel like that's definitely going to play a massive role in, what or how that plays out for people. I think if you're well supported with skills, that's okay. But imagine you're not well supported within a work environment, for example, and you don't have the skills, but there's a high expectation to deliver something. I think that can be pretty stressful for somebody, and especially if, and I think this is something that a lot of people probably feel is, security is pretty important for them, especially with all the uncertainty and stuff in the world. A lot of is restructuring and changing, and so I feel, there's definitely something there, right? Like, but I think even in your personal, like your relationships, for example, right, there could be a thing where there's a expectation on you to do something where maybe you just don't have energy, right? And that creates kind of strain, I guess, because you cannot live up to that. So, yeah.
You mentioned company culture, and I was working with a client a few years ago, and the manager or the boss was sending emails at 11, 12 at night, and that became the company culture, that you responded to an email when you got it. And I said to her one day, you work from, well, you used to work in the city, You used to take a train in at 7 o'clock every morning. You get there about 8, have a cup of coffee, get to the office by about 8:30, 8:45. Then you'd leave at 4 because you had to pick your daughter up by 5. So you get home for 5 to make sure your family was okay. And then we sort of went into the crazy stage of lockdown and pandemic and all the rest of it. And suddenly you weren't taking your daughter to school and you weren't picking up from school. So you were logging onto your computer at 8 o'clock, at 7 o'clock in the morning. And then you were working right through until 6. And then later on, you were still sending emails at 10, 11 at night when they pinged up on your phone. And I said to her, this sort of culture change at this time, and sort of in 2000, it changed to this 24-hour a day job. Are you being paid to do a 24-hour job? And she said, no, I'm not. I said, are you paid to start work at 7 o'clock and to finish at 6 o'clock every night as a sort of official logging off times? And she went, actually, no, I used to work from 9 till 4. And I said, but she said, but that's the culture. That's the culture. I said, okay, I understand it's the culture, and that's the culture you've signed into. But how long does it take you to write that email at 9:30 at night versus at 9:30 in the morning? And I stopped her for a second, and she's thought about it and said, well, that email at 9:30 at night takes me about 25 to 30 minutes to write. But if I write it in the morning at 9:30, it takes me 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And so you put in this extra hours in, but actually you're not really productive.
Yeah, definitely.
You're on empty.
Yeah, I think there's a so New Zealand has a good work culture, right? I must be honest, like they really have a good culture around that. So, you wouldn't really see people in the office after 5 or anything like that, and they don't really send mails out in the evenings and so on. Not everywhere, obviously. I mean, but the general culture is like that. But there was this one coach I spoke to. So what the company that he was coaching at, what do they call that fish that has such a stench on it? I think it's a Swedish.
Yes. Fish. The canned fish. Yes, I know.
Yes.
Strom something.
Yes, yeah. So they had a wheel, right? So anybody that worked after 6 had to spin this wheel. So anyway, and then there's kind of like a punishment, right? So this one guy was spinning the wheel and it landed on this thing, and he had to take a bite. And after that, I immediately stopped working after 6. Nobody else tried it. So you can bring in stuff like that to change it.
That also brings a bit of laughter and a bit of humor in as well, which can really break away tension.
Yeah,
which really breaks away tension. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. But I think there's probably that. I mean, for me, right? Like, and I think this is what's so scary about burning out. It doesn't necessarily happen at once. It's kind of like micro bits, like what you said now, where one night she stays a bit later. The morning she comes in, she didn't get a good night's rest in, right? So she's a bit tired now. One of her meetings might not go exactly as planned, or, so it creates a bit of strain, or she's late for work and she has to rush to get there. So she's a bit more stressed, and I think what happens is like your nervous system gets activated, right? Like, and, once you're kind of like in this fight and flight mode, it becomes, your cognitive ability goes down, like, I think it's probably around 30% or something, some of the stats that I've read. So, I mean, that's massive, right? Like, I mean, walking into your life with 30% less brain capability, basically, each day. So, and I think that's, for me, is like, most of the work that everyone's doing today is knowledge work. So why won't you want to show up with 100% brain?
And I guess also at the same time as your knowledge level, skill level's got to go up, so the expectation is going up as well.
Yeah.
So you've got those two competing against each other, conflicting and causing more stress.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, and I mean, that's the thing. I'm just calling out work because it's an easy example. But it can play out in in any area of your life. I have a friend that exercises quite a lot, but he wanted to get into this Ironman stuff, and immediately started to sign up for races, and just kind of broke himself within the first month and a half. So, and I think it's again like that. It's that kind of ambition versus energy versus his skill level.
Skill levels, yes, yeah.
So even for something like that, so you get injured, or you might even just stop completely because the skill level that expectation for that skill level is way too high based on where you're at.
That's very true, actually, because I think most people try to change too much too quickly. They'll go, we'll start Monday, we're going to start a new diet, and we're going to go from complete carnivore to vegan, right? Yeah. And of course, you're just setting yourself up to failure because you don't understand the process of getting there. And it's the small changes that we make that really make the change.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I've done that, right? Like many times.
We all have. We're human, aren't we? We do these sort of things. We make these silly decisions that, new year, new resolution, new me, right? Gym every day. Doesn't work. Doesn't work.
Yeah, it works for the first month, right? Like
not
that,
even sometimes. Not even sometimes.
Yes.
And I used to work in a gym. You could see how busy it was, that first week of January. The second was 50% less. Yeah. And the third week, it was back to the usual regulars, right?
Yeah.
And then every now and again, one of them would pop in, and then not.
So, I think it'd be interesting to see some, like just from a sales point of view, like the stats that those gyms have, around signups in January versus people that drop off, maybe in March or whatever.
Yeah,
I'm sure they those cycles throughout the year.
There's the big dip, isn't there, that will come after that.
Yeah.
But like anything, if you're it's like, and the analogy that's springing to mind is like a train which is going at 100 miles an hour down a track, right? You're trying to say, here's a habit that you got to do to stop that train from doing what it does. It's not going to do it.
Yeah.
Right? You need a brick wall. And even that probably wouldn't stop the train. Okay. It needs to be gradual. You need to slowly start putting those brakes onto those old habits that aren't necessarily good and start to change them slowly.
Yeah.
And I think this is often where people feel guilty. They bring in that idea of guilt, and then they feel guilty that they haven't done enough. And what does guilt do? It puts you in that lower plane of vibration. So you actually become more guilty. And it's sort of that self-fulfilling not prophecy, but that cycle that you just keep going, and it's like, okay, I'm not gonna eat chocolate this month, right? And of course, then you do, so you feel guilty, and then you eat more chocolate because you felt guilty, and that spiral just goes down and down and down and down, and it's a really tough one for people.
Yeah, I love what you say now, because I think what came up for me was, I think what happens for people is it actually breaks their confidence, right? So you become, over time, you start to form a belief about yourself, right? And that becomes your new reality, right? Ultimately, because now you believe you can't do it anymore, or, you believe that you always give up. And the more you try, and the stronger that belief kind of becomes. And I think it's a spiral, right? Like, I think you could really end up in that spiral. And I think this is probably the other thing. Like, a lot of people, they come in with a big drive because they want something to change in their life. They really want something to change, and especially.
Do you think that belief that because they obviously have a belief that they want to change something? Do you think that belief is inherently theirs, or is it given to them by somebody else?
I think it could be a mix, right? But I think what happens a lot of times when people slow down, they realize, okay, something needs to change. And there's a big drive that comes in with, or need to do that, or to change their lives. And, for me, it's interesting that a lot of people want to change in January, right? Because I think they've taken a break. They've stepped out. Maybe they've gone on holiday and they've realized this is not the life that I want. And because they know it, they just back into the cycle again. And, you know, so I think you really need to slow down to be able to make space for that transformation, you know. And I think what people are doing, they're stacking what they have on top of everything else. Like, let's say that lady you mentioned, right? So there's still that kind of like late hours, but now maybe she wants to introduce something like exercise on top of that.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think you need to, it's like plus or minus, right? Like, you need to take away and think, how is this going to look differently, the stack that I have each day? You know, and that needs to, like I said, it needs to match your energy and what you can do realistically, instead of like you said, bringing too much change too quickly, not making space for the change to happen, you know. And having support, I think, in that journey, at least when you begin that journey, like having somebody that can walk it with you, even if it's a spouse, right? Like, that does something with your friend, it makes it so much easier.
Actually, you think about it, we go back to that train analogy, how difficult it is to stop a train, but how difficult it is to start a train from moving, right? It doesn't go from 0 to 100 in 6 seconds. It's like a junk, 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 junk. It's small shifts, very small shifts. And I guess you're going back to the Iron Man, you know, who wants to do Iron Man and signs up for all of them. He was doing from 0 to 100 and hadn't done all the rest of the small steps. And of course, then you'd burn yourself out straight away.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, and I think that's probably the thing, right? Like we're really intentional around when you introduce new habits, you know, trying not to introduce more than 3 or 5 things. The less, the better, right? Like, that's actually the rule around this. But I mean, if you want to bring in three habits, try to get that to become like, you know, a normal thing for you each day to do. So you really need to build that muscle in your brain to be able to do that even unconsciously, right? So it becomes.
And I guess a habit might also be letting go of something.
Yeah.
So the habit of, I guess, not having 15 cups of coffee a day and just having 3 or whatever it might be.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
It doesn't have to be an adding to that.
Yeah.
Okay. So going to change topics a little bit here, but what is Anton's biggest fear?
That's a good question.
Because we're human and we all have fears.
Yeah.
And our fears, most of our fears tend to be learned from our parents to start off with. I watched myself and my daughter watching my wife, and there was a spider that was being dropped, came down to the ceiling, and both of us were laughing, and then she suddenly saw the spider and then started to freak out. Right? That it was a spider dangling down by its web, and was about to, I don't know, go over her shoulder. And we laughed. Okay, we thought it was hilariously funny. But I have now seen that there's a wariness with my daughter and spiders now, which there wasn't when she was just that toddler with me laughing. And so in some way she has learned about this fear from her mother screaming at the spider coming down. And so has become a lot more wary than she was when she was younger. So our fears definitely are learned.
Yeah.
Even though they might be just through unconscious osmosis. So we all have fears. So where would you say your biggest fear is? And it can be very general. It doesn't have to be anything specific like spiders or.
Yeah. No, but I like what you said. I think I'm really conscious about that as well with my son, right? Like I don't want to pass any generational fears over to him. Like even at the moment, when we have some spider in the house or something, like I'm really conscious not to, make him think that it's extremely dangerous, right? So I think, but for me, and this is a really good question, right? And I think there's a reason for it, because I think my mother grew up really poor, right? And my dad was an orphan. So I think for both of them, when they grew up, security became a big thing. I think within our family, at least. My dad, he was actually a bit more risky, but my mother was really kind of, I think once they had kids, they really wanted to, hold the fort and make sure that they had the security. But I think it's a false security, working for companies a lot of times. But I think for me personally, it's probably, especially having a kid and a wife, right? Like that is a big thing for me, having security to provide and show up for them. I think in a way, just around my work in general. So I think that's probably a big thing for me, honestly. Yeah.
Okay, so this is where we'll sort of throw it in a little differently, because this is usually where I have my pink book of fun. Okay, the pink book of fun. Now, some people hate it. And basically, it's a book which is full with emotions and fears and all sorts of stuff like that. And usually, if someone can't find that particular fear, we'd scan the book and find that's fear. So this fear of, I guess, it's not being able to provide that security for your family.
Yeah.
And if you think about that, how does that make you feel?
I think there's probably a weight that comes with that,
right.
Like, carrying that. Just because you don't know what's going to happen in life, right? Like, it's so unpredictable. I think that's, but I think sometimes I really try to carry that instead of like letting go. And
so you're carrying this weight of the unknown.
Yes.
Right, which is something that potentially will be happening in the future. But you're carrying that heavy weight in the now.
Yes.
In the moment.
Yes.
So what happens if you had to put that weight down?
It's a really relevant question, but I think something, and this is something probably for me, thinking about how I show up. It could be in any way, right? Like whether I try to market my business or when I'm in conversations with certain people, it might be trying to protect, myself in a way, or that safety net. So, I mean, what it does is it actually, I think it takes away some of that authenticity, and because you almost like think you need to pretend to show up a certain way. So I think that's been something, and I've been working on this a bit. So that's why it's, like I said, it's quite relevant to.
Yeah, because you know what I've seen, and what happens is we're carrying the worries that are not even real in our psyche, in our energy, in our field. And if we carry those energies, the universe says to you, well, that's what you're carrying with you. So let's just manifest it for you. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's manifest. Yeah. And because you're being carried and so much worry goes with it, let's manifest it for you even quicker. So this weight of this responsibility, of this need to be the safety net and have, I don't know, a whole bunch of money hidden in the bank just for safety for the rainy day, which is all good things, by the way. But to be worried about that constantly means that you actually stop being in the flow of your truth.
Mm.
And that means that everything you do becomes harder.
Mm.
Right? If I'm, worried about a big meeting that's going to happen later today, for instance, it means I'm not here in the now with you. If I'm worried about something that's happened in the past, whether it be an event, whether it be a trauma, if I'm thinking about that, the only place I can think and remember that is actually in the now.
Yes, yeah.
So you bring everything from the future or the past into the now, which means that you're actually recreating it in the now. So if you have this weight in the future and you think about it right now, you've literally created it in your world right now.
Mm.
And the funny thing I've noticed is that people are far more sensitive to energy, far more sensitive to where you're at. Because they can sense that you're not there. Even though you might be on top of your games, selling your product, motivating, inspiring, if you're not there, they know on some level. And also coming back from sort of trades, I used to work for a company, and there was always an excuse. There was always an excuse when something was late, something wasn't delivered on time, something went wrong. There was always an excuse. It was never their fault. And people saw through that. People these days can see through those lies, can see through that they weren't being truthful. And when they step to a place of going, we screwed up, right? We forgot to get it delivered, or it's still in the warehouse. It's when they owned up to being human and not being perfect, the customers were so much happier.
Yeah.
Because they knew it was going to be late. They knew it would be a week later rather than the day was supposed to be delivered. They felt comfortable. And so when we start to show up in our world as being imperfect and not being this complete perfect being, then people realize that we're all the same. Because nobody gets through life without making mistakes. None of us ever walk down the road without stepping in dog poo at some point. Yes? Maybe there is somebody out there who's never ever done it, but I'm pretty sure for 99.9% of us, it's something that we've stepped on the pavement at some point of life, whether it's that high or that high, that has been stepping in the shit. And that's being human. That's being human. So I'd encourage you to let go of that weight, because when it doesn't mean you don't plan, doesn't mean you don't save, doesn't mean you don't do all those good things, but you let go of that weight. That responsibility. It doesn't mean you become irresponsible. It doesn't mean you don't provide, but you let go of that so you could stay in the now and be in that flow.
Yeah, I like that. I think it is interesting, right? Because once you start anticipating stuff, your brain starts to get into this hyper planning mode, and you start to try to outplan everything in your life. But it just can't work, right? There's just too many unknowns and things around you in life that's gonna come along. And it's like you said, it's good to have plans, but you need the real thing is like trying to stay in the moment, so that you don't miss all the things that's good around you. Because I think your focus can be so far ahead of everything else that becomes stressful. I think you become stressed out.
Yeah. And again, I guess the stress leads to the burnout. The burnout leads to, hey, what am I going to do? So here's a question for you, because, stress, we're always told to avoid stress. But What are your views on stress?
I think
You know,
there's
when
probably
any illness, they say it's caused by stress. One of the first things, oh, it's caused by
yeah,
stress. You got a cold, it's caused by stress. You got the flu, it's caused by stress. Plus a whole
yeah,
bunch of other stuff. But they always put stress as that thing.
yeah.
Is stress a good thing or a bad thing?
I think there's levels, right? I think definitely think there could be healthy levels that's forcing you to perform in a certain way or act on things.
Well, okay, let's go back to, I guess, going to the gym and things like that, because
Yeah,
you're literally putting yourself under stress when you go and lift weights or go and run 5Ks or go and
yeah,
do a deep yoga class. You're
yeah,
putting your body under stress.
yeah.
But what comes after that stress is joy and satisfaction and the feel good factor. And wow, my body feels alive. And
I think you need a
I wish
challenge,
I'd
right?
done it earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you need a certain level of challenge in life with anything. I think that creates. I mean, just looking at kids, right? Like if you try to always save them, protect them, they're really not going to build their full character that they really can. So, you know, you need to let them, you know, get hurt, do the things like be in tough conversations. And I think and to your point, like that is stressful in that moment for them. But what comes out of that is somebody that, you know, builds character through those experiences.
And that resilience and that real
Yeah,
strength of character.
yeah, and you
And
need that, right?
yeah, there was a fantastic. I'm not sure whether it was a poem but it was about a butterfly coming out of its chrysalis, and rather than letting the butterfly come out, they decide to help it come out. So it's got to force its wings through and tear through the pupa and what have you, and come out of this chrysalis as this butterfly, which then flies away. And so they decide to cut it open and help the butterfly out. And because the butterfly hadn't gone through the struggle, through the strain, none of the blood was forced into its wings, right? And so because there was no flow into the wings couldn't work because they need to go through that struggle. So we need to really go through that struggle to grow, and the stress of being human to achieve our greatness, to eventually fly, to fill our wings with what we desire and to fly away.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is really the thing, right? Like I think for us, even, you know, like on our challenges, for example, it's about, yes, you might fail once, right? But it's about bouncing back that second day, you know, coming back, showing up. I think that's the thing. Like, you know, and for that to happen, you need to say, okay, cool. What happened yesterday? Why didn't it work out? What am I going to do today to make it happen? And I think that's really, really the challenge for us, is like, how do we bounce back from all those things and figure out what's next, right? And I think sometimes, you know, for me personally, there's situations where I've closed the doors on stress for specific things and said, this is not for me. You know, I think that's something I've done because I made a conscious decision that I don't think it's gonna aid in my journey, or it's gonna aid me in who I really want to become. But it was a learning for me that that's something that I didn't actually want, that I thought I might have wanted. You know, like you said, I think it was it might be because you saw somebody else do it, or you thought, you know, that might be something that I'm gonna try out and feel like, you know, if that's gonna be something that's aligned to me, and then you realize, no, close this one. And
That's
I mean,
okay, though, isn't it? It's okay to know.
Yeah. I mean, that's how you learn who you are, right? Like, you need to try stuff. Yeah. I mean, I tried CrossFit for, I think, nearly a year, and there was one moment that that I was rowing, and I just realized, no, this is not for me. Like, and one of my friends, he got me into it. He's like, no, you need to try it out. And I was like, okay, cool, I'll give it a shot. And I did it, and it was just one moment I realized, no, this is really, it was cool doing it, but
and it might be right for you in 10 years' time. This is the thing that I think that people often forget, is that they try these things and go, this is not for me, I'm never going to do it again. That's okay.
Yeah.
What's right for you right now and what's right for me right now might be aligned, or they might not be, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But at some point they might actually overlap and cross over and be the other way around. Yes. And that's the beautiful journey of this life, is that we're going to have these experiences that come into our lives, and we're able to just line them up and take every one we can get. And I guess, are we taking every opportunity we can get? Because I think most people aren't. Most people are a little bit afraid of maybe even standing out, maybe even being seen as not being perfectly human, right?
Yeah. I think there's a big expectation people probably have on themselves, around showing up perfectly. And I think there's a couple of things that I've seen play out for a lot of people, is where this perfectionism is actually holding them back, or a need to have control, or even judging I think themselves too hard. I think those are things that I've seen played out for people as really holding them back from really achieving what they can. So there's definitely layers to this, right? Like figuring out what's behind it for you. When we take the curtains down, what is this thing that's really holding you back? Because on a surface level, I think it usually seems like I don't have discipline, or something like that. But I think once you go down layers, there's definitely something in there that's much bigger about themselves.
There always is, isn't there? There always is.
Yeah.
So, Anton, it's been really, really lovely chatting to you and getting to know the Anton behind the Growth Lab. So how does people get hold of you?
So we have a website, so hellogrowthlab.com.
Hellogrowthlab.com. Yes, brilliant.
Yeah. So what we're doing at the moment is we have, like, part of our mission is really to show up ourselves, but also to create a community where we help people who just wants to improve. So we have this 1% better community, which is free to join, and where we introduce a new habit every month, and people can come along, be in a community, try stuff out. We do all kinds of stuff. So I think last month there was about doing 2,000 push-ups, which you joined us on.
Which I did join you on, yes.
Both of us achieved, so I feel really proud of that. I didn't think...
I'm very proud of myself with that, because when I heard the number 2,000, I was like, there's no way I can do 2,000 push-ups in a month. Not even a month. It was 23 days or something, wasn't it? Was it?
Yeah. And you're looking all jacked up and stuff now, so it obviously worked. Yeah. But I think the idea, right? So in the future, what we want to do with the community as well is we want people to, come and join different challenges, and it could even be, meditation, drinking water, or whatever. Like, there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff like that coming up. And
so it's just about taking that one small change, one a month, and just keep doing it regularly till it almost becomes this ingrained habit.
Trying a new habit, right? Like something that's gonna help you improve. I think that's a big thing for us, right? Because if you improve, 1% each day, you'll be 37 times better by the end of the year. So that's kind of what we're trying to go for, is like, if we can just get 1% improvement on who we are or what we do each day, who will we become in the future? And that's kind of the thing. We want to really stick with this in the community and see, where it gets us to. Yeah, super exciting.
All changes are going to make people better, stronger,
Yeah.
physically, emotionally, mentally.
Yeah. Yeah, and along the way, if people need support, like coaching support, we are there. But other than that, I think the thing is just join the community, and then, I think something exciting that we're working on is, and this is really because of the AI stuff coming up as well, is a big thing for us is how do we make time for people in their days, and we really believe at this stage AI is going to be that thing that's going to allow you to make space, and I think if you can save 30 minutes with a repetitive task that you're doing each day. And I mean, at the end of a month, you're looking at what, like 15 hours. In a year, there's probably around, what's that, 100 and, what's it, 30 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you save that, there's already kind of like, 2-3 weeks that you've shedded off your work by just saving 30 minutes each day. So I think that for us is really exciting. That's something we believe, like, it takes away, it gives people more control and ownership of their life, because now it's not a thing about I don't have time anymore. It's about what can I do with this extra 30 minutes, And I think, I kind of spoke about that chunks and layers, how can we make more time and space for people to do this stuff that they care for.
And get back to that whole idea of community, because community is we're never alone, are we? It goes back to you never do everything alone. You're always doing with somebody else, right? Even if that person's completely silent, you never learn to write unless you had a school teacher who taught you how to write. So you didn't write alone. You didn't learn to walk without encouragement from your parents.
Yeah.
Right. Otherwise you wouldn't walk.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. Nothing we do in life is ever alone.
Yeah, there's nothing better than doing stuff with people, right? Like, and walking that journey with them. Like the stress and like that you mentioned, that kind of challenge that's out there. Doing that with people, it grows a bond between them because they've done something together that was that's a accomplishment for them, right? So I think it could also in the future like build friendships between those people, and I think that's something that we're really looking to establish in our community, is building friendships between people and linking people up. So there's a whole bunch of interesting people already in there, and
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to carrying on with this month's challenges. I don't necessarily do them in the order that they're laid out to, but I am doing them. So yes, if anybody would like to join the Growth Lab, you're most welcome to do that. And I'll put the links in the comment section below. Anton, thank you so much for your time. Have incredible. It's nighttime for you. Have a good rest and a good sleep. And
thanks, Oliver.
I look forward to catching up with you again soon.